Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Current, Real Talk on Real Topics. It's great to be here, joined alongside Bo. We got another great episode in the works for you. If you've been listening over the last few episodes, you know that we've been making our way through some core values for our church. So some Rhythm church-specific core values, and we've gone over 3 of them already. We're in the 4th and final week. And so we've already covered some really great ones. We've talked about Jesus shows us the way. We've talked about the Holy Spirit moves us. We've talked about how we grow best when we grow together. And so that leads us to the last one today, which is that God made all people infinitely valuable.
Yes.
I think a good place to start maybe is just to give you some space to talk about why this is a core value. I guess what kind of motivated you in thinking through Rhythm's core values to say this is something that defines us?
Yeah. Well, I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, but one of the things that I'm most proud of about our church already, and I think our church does a fantastic job of this, is just its diversity. And to me, a church is way more healthy when it's more diverse. And the reason diversity is so important is because of this language, because of this like culture you're creating in saying that we're not all going to look the same.
Yeah.
We're not all going to act the same. We're going to have different struggles. We're going to have different strengths. We're going to vote differently. We're going to have different, ideas about how the world should work. But we're all going to just come together under Jesus, and we're all infinitely valuable. And I think for me, one of the reasons I want this to be a core value, and again, just maybe the language which creates culture drives your mission. I think it's really important for me that we are a church where everyone feels loved, no matter what. And I know a lot of churches will say that. I mean, I think most churches I know would say we love everybody. But what's funny about that is, and I think we'll talk more about this in this episode, but oftentimes it is just lip service.
Yeah.
It's just, they might say that in theory,
Sure.
but in practice, it's much different because of, again, how they run things or things they teach or how they might, operate in certain areas doesn't always communicate that or like subtly. Even their environments, a lot of times a church's environment won't communicate that. Anyway, there's a lot of factors, and we can talk, more about that. But I think for me, that was the main reason, is that I don't want it to just be lip service. I want it to be just a massive part of who we are, in saying that everyone matters. Everyone matters. They're infinitely valuable. We're all in the same boat. It doesn't matter what you struggle with. It doesn't matter what your life may look like. I kind of always say it doesn't matter where you've been, what you've done, or what's been done to you. You're welcome here. And I really believe that. And to me, I couldn't think of anything more beautiful for Rhythm Church to have that be really just a core of who we are.
I think that's really, really good. I know, like you said, most churches are going to want to say, we affirm that everybody's infinitely valuable, but it doesn't always come through in how it looks and how it feels. Yeah. And I was excited as we were working through some of these core values to see this one come up, because I felt like this is the sort of thing that resonated with me in my early on experiences with Rhythm Church. So, I'd attended Rhythm for a number of years before I was on staff here, but I remember one of the first things that drove me to come back was I walked in and I felt as if I could tell that, like, I can be here how I am, and I loved looking around the room and, like you said, the diversity, and looking at these other people and saying, they belong here too, and I can tell that this is an environment where that's true. Even something that's really, this is maybe a shallow example, but even just in the way that people dress, even in how they show up to the service. I know I would think through sometimes. I'd have friends in my life that I say, oh man, I know Jesus loves you. I know you're valued. I want to be able to take you into church. I want to let you hear about this God who loves you. But I would be hesitant because I knew they looked a certain way. I knew they acted a certain way. And I thought, man, I know this God that thinks you're so valuable, but I'm worried to bring you into this space because I'm not sure they're going to treat you the exact same. And I never really had to worry about that in this space, which is something I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, and growing up in church, obviously, I literally was in church almost every Sunday, and we very rarely ever missed. And then growing up in church, going to a Bible college, working in a couple churches, I've been around churches, and I don't want to bash churches because I don't think they do it on purpose. I really don't.
No.
But every church I was a part of growing up, every church I was a part of that I worked in prior to Rhythm, I think Rhythm really is unique and does a great job of this. Again, I'm not saying they're doing it intentionally, but what can happen is it ends up being a bunch of people that all look alike, make the same amount of money, dress the same, like you're saying. I mean, I know it seems shallow, but really, like, what is that communicating when somebody walks in the door that maybe giving church a chance for the first time ever, or maybe back in a long time, you know, they took a big hiatus and they walk in and they don't fit the part, you know, like again, I'm not saying that they're intentionally doing that, but that just what can happen if you don't have a core value like this, or if it isn't a part of your culture, it's not important to you, because again, your core values, you know, or your language drives the culture fuels your mission. And so, I'm just so proud to be a part of a church that is so diverse, where literally, like you, and I love that example. I'm so glad you experienced that. But where anybody can walk through the doors and feel like, man, like, I fit in here. Like, there's all kinds of people here, and I'm one of them. You know.
And I think obviously, you know, when churches are thinking through, hey, we want to be diverse. I understand sometimes you're limited by your geographic area, and I always think your church should reflect a good cross-section of just kind of what the demographic of your town looks like in terms of, socioeconomic makeup, all those things. And like you said, if it becomes a place where we're all sitting around thinking the same things, doing the same things, we aren't, I don't think we're challenged as much, we can't grow as much. But as you say that, my mind immediately went to a passage in the book of James where James gets after some of the local church people because they were giving these preferential treatment to the people with the nice rings and up front, and the people who weren't dressed as well had to go find their way in the back. And I think James understood, hey, no, this is a gospel issue here. This is saying, no, you are dividing here and saying, these people are more worthy, these people need to sit in the back. And James is saying, no, you don't get this. Like, all are infinitely valuable. Don't show preferential treatment based on these things. And so that is something I'm so grateful for. I've never had a bat an eye or seen our people bat an eye when someone walks in that doesn't look the church part, you know?
Yeah. There was an example. I think this was so cool. There was a church who had been looking for, I think a couple years for a pastor, and they finally, they're probably a search team or committee, you know, hiring different candidates, and they finally hired a pastor. You know, they came to, hey, like, we want you to come. In some circles, they have to come and, like, you know, the church body then votes.
Right.
You know, like, so this was, I think, one of those examples where this was going to be that pastor's first kind of Sunday to say, hey, I'm coming. I accepted this position. I want this position. And he dirtied himself up. I don't know if you've heard this story, but, like, he dirtied himself up and, like, literally looked homeless, sat in the crowd, and was told by ushers to, like, move back, or, like, you know, literally, like, the church not really shunned him, but I mean, it's kind of like, you know, saying, hey, like, you know, hey, like, sit back here, you know, exactly what we were talking about in this passage. And then the elder team or the search team, you know, whatever, gets up there and says, you know, we'd like to introduce you to our new pastor. Well, he gets up from the back, walks down the aisle, and pretty much his first sermon that Sunday, and I think this is so cool, but his first sermon that Sunday was like this.
Yeah.
This is the number one issue right here that we're going to address. You know, like, as a pastor of this church, like, this can't happen. And, you know, like, what a shame that the church did that. But at the same time, like, I commend the pastor for saying, hey, like, this is a value. This is important to me. Like, we're not going to do this. We're not going to treat people differently, you know, based on anything. And that's where I kind of want to go next, and talk more about, like, the theology side of things. Yeah. So we talked a lot about how it practically, like, plays out in churches, again, our language, our culture, but theologically it also communicates something. And, you know, I think as a church, we err on the side of grace. Yeah. You know, like, there is a balance between grace and truth, but at Rhythm, I'd rather be marked by grace than anything. Yeah. You know, I think that's how Jesus was. And, you know, I mean, there's numerous examples. Like, you brought up James, but I think about Jesus and, you know, the woman at the well, you know, and, like, obviously her life was not, you know, what she probably hoped it would be. and of course didn't really, you know, meet even what Jesus would say is, hey, this is what's healthy for your life. Yeah. But he showed her grace, you know, and then she ends up being the first one telling, like, the first recorded really evangelists we see in scripture. She goes and tells the town about, this man she met that gave her living water, but anyway, it's just like, but over and over when we see Jesus interactions with people and say, go and sin no more. So like he offered grace, but then he stood for a little bit of truth to say, hey, there's a calling on your life, but I want to be a church that errs on the side of grace. And so theologically, it also communicates something to say, no matter what, and we all have sin, we all have struggles, but no matter what, we see you the same.
Yeah.
We see you the same. And I had a awful experience with this growing up. Again, raised Southern Baptist, but they have some pretty unique qualifications for deacons.
Okay.
And so my dad was married not very long, his first wife. I'm not exactly sure all the details. We actually just had a conversation a little bit about it, last month when they were here. But he was told that he could not, even though he was so in the process is like you nominate somebody, like you can anyway, someone nominated my dad to be a deacon and was told no because he had been married before. And that just rubbed my dad the wrong way. And again, like theologically, what are you communicating to somebody to say, your sin must define you then? Like you're not any greater than your sin. Like, or you can't do this because of, I don't even know if it was his fault. I mean, honestly, it could have, I think it was infidelity on, anyway, it doesn't matter. The end of the day, like to say that my dad, who's the most like amazing, godly, just amazing man, was told that he can't be a deacon in the church that he wanted to be a deacon in because he, of something that happened in his past.
That's so sad.
What are you communicating?
What kind of message are we giving to people in terms of redemption? And I think it's important, even in the way that the core value is phrased, and this is important to say, like, all people are created infinitely valuable. Yeah. We don't merit our infinite value, No, it's instilled in us. We're made in the image of God. And I think that's an important thing. Oftentimes, it can seep into Christian circles, too, that we are what we do. And so, the fact that you've done X, Y, or Z is the defining mark of you, not the image of God in you. And it's important that I think we can focus into that to say, no matter, where you are, what you've done, I still see behind this beautiful image of God. It might be broken, it might be marred right now, but there's something worth redeeming there. And I think we see that in Jesus too, right? He doesn't just give up on the people. He doesn't give up on Paul, even though he's going around killing people, He continues to pursue, and he's a God that's drawn to the margins. Jesus wants to be around the people that didn't have stuff together, that society would not have considered them to be a valuable asset, whether it's the children, whether it's the prostitute, whether it's the tax collector, whatever. Jesus says, society doesn't find you as valuable, but I know better. And I think we should as a church too. And I'm glad that I think we do.
Yeah. And another thing that I feel like that kind of makes Rhythm unique is, theologically, again, this is something we're communicating, is we probably align closest with Anabaptist theology. So something that's really important, I know, to both of us is this idea of nonviolence and loving your enemies. And so if this is a core value, now, again, we want to be consistent. So if all people were created infinitely valuable, that also means your enemies.
Yeah.
And, and when Jesus says love your enemies, how can you love an enemy and want to kill them? You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's the question.
So we are kind of makes Rhythm unique in that way, is that we have a commitment to nonviolence. We have a commitment to enemy love.
Yeah.
Again, this is where this core value takes shape theologically, where we say, and Jesus even says, it's easy to love the people that are easy to love, it's easy to love your friends. It's easy to love, the people, but it's another thing to love those that persecute you, or pray for those who persecute you.
Exactly.
So I think that's another just example of how that plays out for us here at Rhythm. And you don't have to agree on that. That's what I'd say. Like, if you attend Rhythm and you're, you're not all the way there with Jesus, that's okay. Again, I would challenge you on that to maybe reconsider, read the New Testament, read the Sermon on the Mount. That's a great place to start. Like, Jesus's, greatest sermon ever, talks about this. So I really, again, I would just challenge you to reconsider that if it's something you never thought about before. But it's not something where we're going to say you have to agree with us on that. But that's just something that marks us, I think. And if we're talking about our core values, that's something that definitely, that's the extent to which we take it as well, to say, not only are we going to love all the people that we agree with, we're definitely going to love our enemies too. You know, we're going to love them just as, again, because all people are created in the image of God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, we can agree to say, okay, all people are infinitely valuable, and people might not agree to the extent that we take it, but I think it is important to, like you said, to see the way that it works out. If we're being consistent and just saying, hey, all people are infinitely valuable, despite what they've done, there's still a value there.
That's
and
right.
so if that's true, like, how can we not help but want to love them, pursue them? And I think, again, this is what we see revealed in the person of Jesus, that it's someone that continues to pursue, that wants to go after, that says, no, even if you've done wrong, I'm not far from giving you what you deserve. I'd rather die than give you what you
That's
deserve.
right.
And so if we can get close to that and we can find a God who says, I love you, I think you're valuable, there's something intrinsically worthy about you, even when you're stuck in the muck and mire of your sin. How can we not as Christians look at that and say, oh my gosh, yeah, I was loved in my most pitiful moment, like while I was yet a sinner, how can we turn and look at someone else and not say, hey, you should be extended the same grace too?
Yeah. And I think we'll probably do maybe an episode on like the death penalty, but I would say even carries into that to say, like, if a person is infinitely valuable, how can we say, you're not valuable anymore? You know, like, anyway, like,
yes.
it extends to a lot of different areas. And then again, I'm sure maybe we'll talk about that at some point.
Yeah.
But again, my hope is that people hear that when we say that all people are infinitely valuable, that we mean it, and it's consistent. It's an ethic that we hold to. It's a core value that not only we say, but we really attempt to live out. And I can't tell you the amount of times that I've heard people similar to your story to say, like, I'm proud to be part of a church where there's all walks of life, all different kinds, all different shapes. I mean, it's literally one of the most proud things of Rhythm is that we don't all look the same, and we don't all vote the same, and we don't all, make the same decisions and pursue the same things, make the same amount of money, dress the same, whatever you want to say. It's just like one of the most beautiful things about our church. And I love it.
I do too. And I keep bringing it back to Jesus. We do that a lot around here. But I love even in Jesus's, he does show us the way. And he shows us that all people are infinitely valuable. He shows us the value, I think, in some diversity. Even in his collecting of the 12 disciples, I love the fact that he takes the Roman sympathetic tax collector that's like, in bed with Rome, and he takes the radical zealot that wants to violently overthrow Rome and says, I'm going to take both of you and bring you in on what I'm doing. And I think our church would be the same way. Yeah, we don't want to all be that one cookie cutter reflection.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I feel like, again, I think this is what Satan does to churches, is theologically, they'll have those arguments that they're willing to die on and say, if you don't think this about a particular sin or a particular struggle, then you're out. You're out. You can't be a Christian if you believe this, or like, you can't be a Christian if you're a Democrat, or you can't be a Christian if, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's those lines where they draw in the sand and say, we're not going to budge here. But again, falling back to Jesus, is there ever a scenario in which no one was included, or was there ever a scenario in which grace wasn't extended to anyone and everyone, no matter what they thought, no matter how deep or far gone you might think they would be? We see that example in Jesus, and I'm so glad you brought that up. Of course, Jesus shows us the way. It's a core value, but it's so good. And I don't ever want to be one of those churches that takes a stand on things, and say, well, you think this or you're out, and stuff like that.
I think it's important too. Yeah, we talk about drawing lines in the sand. I think we need to be careful to, I guess, how do I want to say this? Jesus oftentimes has the harshest words for those who want to be the line drawers, the ones who want to say, okay, now you're on the outside. Jesus tend to spoke quite harshly. Yeah. At the same time, I want to say, as Christians, we have things we think there are, where we draw those lines, we need to give careful consideration to. But yeah, to say like, oh, because you've been formerly married, or because you voted with this particular political party, we're like rescinding your Christian status is ridiculous.
Yeah. And there's absolute truths, like I think are non-negotiable.
Sure.
Jesus being the Son of God, or like, there's some that I would say like, this is really within like the Apostles' Creed, I think, is a great example. Like that stood the test of time. Like if we can't agree on that, then there might be some issues. We're still gonna love you. You're still infinitely valuable. But I don't really know if you can call yourself a Christian. If you can't just agree to like just a basic creed, and that's all that's on our website, and that's on purpose. And most church websites I go to, it is a long, exhaustive list of like things they specifically believe, but we're intentional again. If all people are created infinitely valuable, we don't want those lines other than be where they need to be.
Exactly.
And on those just core things, which this creed has kind of marked Christians for centuries. It's really important, and that's why the Apostles' Creed's on our website, and that's all we'll ever be there.
I love to as we were thinking through this core value, part of me thought about flipping it the other way, where what I think is interesting about this notion that all people are infinitely valuable is I want to say, I think most people have this gut feeling that like this is true, that other human life is precious, it's esteemed, there's something unique and valuable about humans. And what I find interesting as we're thinking through this value is I think this is such a great pointer towards Christianity, or toward, I think, theism specifically, because I think it's the Christian message, or at least, some sort of theistic message that allows us to be right about that. Yeah. So I guess here's what I mean. Like, we have this gut feeling that everyone's infinitely just specifically valuable, endowed with something like that. And yet, if there is no God, I'm not sure we can have that be the case. Like, there's no universal human rights. There's no something that's intrinsically valuable. We happen to be genetic material that, developed into this particular form and function. Sure. But there's nothing like infinitely valuable, like really, truly grounding it. We can say, but
it's kind of like you said yesterday, like even the Constitution, for those of you that like history buffs and
I think
patriotic, like think about what the Constitution says.
So here's these people who want to come together and say, like, we want a society that's function and formed around the dignity of people, and they realize it. And the way that they ground it is they say that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that, each individual has been endowed by their creator God with certain inalienable rights. Like, they hold it to be self-evidently true, And I think it's interesting, once we lose that notion of, this human rights and specialty and value, it does some interesting things to our society and how we work. And I think, for me, it's just a signpost. I have this deep inside feeling that human life's valuable.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to make sense of that is to say that, well, maybe we've been endowed with that sort of special value.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that document written so long ago, was by people that had that same tug on their heart to say, like, people matter.
Yeah.
They're infinitely valuable. There's something greater happening here inside.
Yes.
And I agree with you. I don't know if you can get to that point without theism.
Exactly.
God, something giving you that value.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing that grounds it outside. If we just happen to be matter that finds itself here, and we kind of are here for fears, and it floats away, and we disappear into atoms and whatever. Where's this infinite value? But yet, even though I know that, everything screams in me as I look at my neighbor, as I see someone hurting, as I look at them, I'm like, no, these people matter.
Yeah.
And I just can't seem to get past it.
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's a really good point. So good. I love this core value. I think it's, again, just the heart of who we are as a church. I love it so much. And thanks for listening again. This will be the last part of this
flew by
value series. But be sure and jump back on. I mean, if you just listen to this one, we covered all four of our kind of our new core values, but really it's kind of what we've done all along.
Yeah, we're kind of discovering.
We're just kind of changing the language, making it a bigger part of our culture. So it's been fun. It's been really fun, and we'll be sure and subscribe and continue to catch our content each and every Friday. We'll be back next Friday with more real talk on real topics.
Can't wait.
Thanks for joining. See you later.